why can't he just talk about the issues as opposed to going there?
I mean, you heard it. He's obsessed with the genetic composition of the murderers and the violent people who are in the country. We do have 13,000 murderers here. We have even more people here who've committed sexual crimes, violent sexual crimes.
What about the genetic composition of murderers here in the United States who are American citizens? What should we do about that?
Fine. I think it's perfectly fine to acknowledge that there is a long body of research that there are some people who are genetically predisposed to violence. But today, there has been an effort to make it seem like Donald Trump is saying something about immigrants when all he is commenting on are the violent murderers who are in the country. It's simply not true what's being said about him today. And I can't believe, honestly, what I'm hearing. I've seen people all day long attacking Trump because he's worried that we have 13,000 violent murderers.
But he's calling attention. There are white people in this country who are committing far more murders than immigrants and other Americans.
There's also white immigrants in the country, too.
The point is that Donald Trump is a white supremacist. He is generating nativist language to appeal to genetic basis of behavior. That is a classic definition of what we mean by white supremacy.
When I talk about why does he keep doing this, it's because this is not the only time he's talked about this. He has said broadly that immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country. So that has also happened.
That's literally a white supremacist trope, by the way.
But I mean, you can't explain that away.
I think what Scott is saying is absolutely accurate when it comes to this being very unfair. There have been many cases when I'm on your show and other shows, and I will call out when I think it's wrong. But in this case, I don't think that's what he was saying. This goes back to that nature versus nurture debate. This has nothing to do with race. I don't care whether it's a white person, a black person, an immigrant, an American. Somebody who kills somebody may actually have bad genes, and that's been studied for many, many years. We don't want people murdering people in this country. I don't care whether they are born here or they come from somewhere else. And we certainly, when we already have crime problem in our country with people who are born here, we don't want 13,000.
He's not making that argument.
We don't want over
He's not making that argument.
We don't want over 400,000 convicted criminals coming to this country and staying here for decades because, as we all know, we have a broken immigration system in which we have a court backlog that extends up to a decade, maybe more.
He's not making that argument about people who are here.
Surely everyone at this table knows that the rate of immigrant crime is actually lower than the rate of crime by U.S.
So you're okay with 13,000 murderers being in the country because of the rate of crime?
That's not really how it works.
I'm not okay.
When there's an immigrant...
Hang on a second, Jay, because I'll let you continue. But I just have to address, look, that number, it's wildly misleading to suggest that is a number that references a small period of time. That is like over the course of many decades.
I don't think anybody at this table talked about the reference of time. The fact is they're
13,000
here. And if they've been here for decades, that's even worse.
13,000 people
it's other violent crimes.
But what y'all are missing is that you're not
who were incarcerated over the course of decades is not a sign that there is any greater incidence of crime.
Well, considering that we've seen the numbers quadruple of the people coming in, we may not be able to...
What about the people here? This is my point. What about the genetic makeup of people who are already in America?
I have a problem with that, too.
Who are doing that?
And guess what? We don't want them
here. But wait a minute. Why isn't it pointed to? Why isn't it articulated? Why isn't it repeated?
Because he's talking specifically about the open border. He's not talking about murder.
A moment ago, you said he wasn't talking about immigration. Now you're saying he is talking about immigration. The fact is,
he's asking why we're not talking about other criminals. He got asked a question about it.
You know, Scott, you know full well that he has repeated this lie for 8 years. He has repeated this lie for 8 years that immigrants are in some way more prone to criminality, that they're less human, that they have bad blood, that they have bad genetics. I don't understand how you can mince words around the racist nature of that.
He was asked about.
He said when he came down the elevator, he said that Mexico was sending their rapists and their murderers. They're sending people.
And these stats would tell us that a lot of rapists and murderers have gotten
at a lower rate than natural born.
So you're okay with them if it's a lower rate? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I don't want rapists and murderers here.
It's not a scapegoat. We don't. If it's preventable, that people come across the border.
Go ahead, Al.
We don't go like, okay, you're a rapist, you're in. You're a rapist, okay, come on in. That's not how it works. I mean, these are people who are not brought in knowing that they are rapists. So there is such a thing as it turns out that, and I don't know, and I think Abby's right, this is over decades. And so many of these rapists came in when Donald Trump
And so why haven't we gotten them out? That's the problem. I mean, if some of them have been not only convicted, they've been deported, and they're still roaming the country.
That is not true.
No, some of them have been convicted of murder outside of their countries. We find out about it later, then they get deported, and they're still roaming the nation.
The numbers that you're referring to,
there are many more white rapists in this country than immigrants will ever account for.
Trust me, I don't want any rapists
inclination of white men to be seen as the perpetrators of violence that is extraordinary in this country is well documented, but you don't appeal to a genetic basis. This is classic white supremacy, and your justification of it is an extension of that logic.
No one's talking about race. That's the problem.
No.
We're just talking about immigrants with bad genetics and bad blood. That is what race is.
We're not talking about race. Not all immigrants are
minority.
Not every immigrant's a minority. Any immigrant that commits a crime, we want out of this country. I don't know how we could be arguing about that point right there.
Hang on a
white
second.
supremacist arguments about genetic.
Hang on a second. Let me just play just so that people understand. We've been talking about Trump's comments about immigrants over a course of time. He's been talking about this for a while and talking specifically about basically people's genetic makeup of the people who are coming to this country. Listen.
Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from. It's poisoning the blood of our country. They're poisoning the blood of our country. They're poisoning our country. A lot of it's about the genes, isn't it? Don't you believe? The racehorse theory, you think we're so different? You know, I believe in the racehorse theory. Fast horses produce fast horses.
This is an old thing. This is an old that you can identify who's a rapist by their color and by their immigrant status. I think this is offensive.
Let me give you the political reality that we're in right now in October.
Sure.
Huge majority of the American people believe and know that we have an illegal immigration crisis in this country. Kamala Harris got asked 3 times on national television tonight if it was wrong to change the executive orders the way they did on day one that allowed this huge flood of people to come in. She would not address it because she knows how politically damaging it is. There are people all over this country in every political party, and independents too, who know full well that if she becomes the president, we're going to have a permissive immigration structure, even more permissive than we had under Biden. And they believe Donald Trump will crack down on this and that he has the common sense viewpoint that, hey, maybe we don't want violent people in here. No, they don't go down the list and say rapist in, rapist in. They just go down the list and say in. Why don't we know if they've been convicted of a crime in another country? It's broken. He will crack down on it. She will not. And everyone knows
Scott, you just perpetuated the same lie that Donald Trump has been saying for 8 years, that we're letting in violent people. We are letting in people, and this group of people who are coming in, most of whom are coming for economic opportunity, commit crimes at a lower rate. I'll just keep saying it, a lower rate than people who were born here. That's the reality.
Is that why you want to keep the violent ones?
You could make a non-racist argument about immigration control, and I'd be receptive to hearing it.
You can make an honest argument about what you're saying. You're saying we have to keep the violent people because of the economic people, and that's not true.
I don't remember saying that at all.
You just said
Donald Trump has made the racist argument since day one. Since 2016, he has said this again and again. I'm sure I can't say the word he described some S-hole countries. Those were countries in Africa. Those were countries with brown-skinned people. Then he said, how come we can't have more immigrants from Norway, like the whitest country on the planet? And you're going to say that there's no race inflection here, that this is just, I'm worried about crime? Come on. You know better, and you should know better.
If you're an immigrant whose name is Joseph, you're in. If you're Jose, you're not. The point is that the discrimination to discriminate in terms of distinguishing who's violent and who's not ends up being, ironically, inadvertently, you wink, wink, tethered to race and to the immigration policy that is premised upon denying the legitimacy of American status to these people. Why is it that we got to pick them out in terms of you're violent because you're Mexican, you're violent because you're Dominican, you're violent because
couldn't we just have a better system where we're able to maybe check?
We tried. Donald Trump killed the bill.
But you all sitting at this table can't.
There was a bipartisan bill.
Almost 10 million people pour across the border. We have no idea who they are.
Again, are we going to export a bunch of white guys who would kill
Michael,
folks?
We're going to have to go here, but, again, with a lot of these arguments, you're making an articulate argument, Donald Trump is saying that they're poisoning the blood, that they have bad genes.
I'm John Murphy, and here's a quick Occupy Democrats coda to cap this puppy. Bad genes in our country, genetic predisposition, resource theory? Hey, hate monger, heal thyself, because no one who ever sought public office has more of a scurrilous, racially intolerant pedigree than Fred Trump's son.
Trump, you know, in the history of this country where we've heard this discussion before, they don't look Jewish to me.
Oh, really?
They don't look Indian to me. They don't look Italian to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a test for whether people could go into business or not go into business, whether they could get a bank loan. You're too black, you're not black enough.
Now, if you don't believe me, ask someone actually born into that heated year-round, whites-only DNA pool.
He just is fundamentally a racist.
Well, if it came to passing a criminal background check at the border, well, Trump would be turned away, and rightfully so. He'd be told to go back to where he came from, Das Vaterland. I'm sorry, Jagger, where he might be more comfortable with people of his own kind.